Let's talk about the user interface design of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This video is a critique. It's essentially an exercise in user feedback, intended to offer insight for the viewer's own creative endeavors. While we will be focusing on unsatisfactory design qualities, this isn't about airing petty grievances. The game isn't bad for these choices. These perceived flaws or shortcomings aren't keeping anyone up at night. This is just having a discussion on the often overshadowed aspect of user interface in game design. These are essentially opinions and are particular to each user, so please feel invited to offer your own interpretations in the comments below. Let's get into it. Topic 1. Flying redundancy. Pokemon has come a long way in terms of quality of life updates. In early installments, teleporting to a predetermined location was generally locked behind needing access to the HM Fly. That system of fast travel has been reworked to a general standard of hailing a cab, but limit travel location options to those the player has already visited. That's very fair, very efficient, and pretty dang perfect. However, in Scarlet and Violet, the system has a bit of a hitch. When a player selects a location to fly to, they are met with another prompt asking to confirm the location. The issue is, it's already been selected. The confirmation prompt is entirely redundant and grows bothersome. Let's imagine a user experience. Choosing to go somewhere else usually represents a change in motive, such as being done with a particular shiny hunt or needing to go collect a particular resource like Pokeballs. So that change of plan is often when a player is more likely to step away for a second, answer an email, or grab a snack. So when we choose a place to fly to, step away to address a chore, and come back to see we never even left because there was a second prompt, it's not devastating, it's just annoying. But considering the point of a video game is entertainment, the tediousness adds up. To offer an analogy, it feels like assigning a morning task to an employee and coming back in the afternoon to realize they didn't do it. Flying/fast traveling is pretty quick. If a player flies to the wrong location, it's pretty easy to immediately correct. So requiring a second confirmation screen doesn't feel necessary when it could otherwise be easily rectified. We struggle to identify a scripted event that would be accidentally activated by a misapplied fly. For all these reasons, the potential of tediousness could be minimized were the second flying confirmation prompt removed, or at minimum, had the option to turn off in settings. Topic 2. Shinies and the PC system. Shiny hunting has become a new post-game. In previous generations, a player who beat the game was generally limited to keep playing by battling competitively, and that's not for everyone. Shiny hunting has become a way to keep more players playing past the metagame. In Legends Arceus, players were delighted that shinies were identified in the overworld with a sparkling star effect. That effect was not included in Scarlet and Violet, and that's okay. That's not the user interface critique here. If anything, taking out that feature is justified by pre-existing lore, as no shiny Pokemon in the anime radiates starlight, nor would that really be any sort of evolutionary advantage. Anyway, while losing that feature might feel a little disappointing to most, it adds a fun new challenge of having to know what the shiny version of each Pokemon looks like so you don't miss it. Controversial, sure, but moving on. No matter how you justify it, losing that shiny sparkle was a loss of quality of life. That loss is only exacerbated when digging around in the PC storage system. Shiny Pokemon in the PC are not distinguished by their unique coloration. That doesn't feel adequate. We've already identified and cataloged this unique subspecies. It's uniquely colored in the overworld, so why not its shiny colors in the PC storage? It should be, but wait, there's more. It gets worse. The PC storage background is a rolling gradient of rainbow colors. This can be thematically appreciated with Terapagos's rainbow back. However, speaking from opinion, this thematic connectivity is overzealously applied in this instance. While already hunting for unique colors and requiring that they be viewed individually, but then changing the background color you're instinctually comparing them to feels quite misguided. All these lacking factors might be forgiven if there was a sort or search by shiny filter, but surprisingly that's not even an option. Granted, you can see the symbol indicating a shiny, but when your game runs best in handheld mode, that symbol gets pretty small when you're flipping through. Making your shiny storage in Legends Arceus a gradient was a blast, and seeing that absent in a subsequent installment is hard to justify. Let's not throw the flabebe out with the bathwater. The undulating colors could be scaled back, such as being used to only frame the PC background instead of being the entire background. Also, shinies should have shiny sprites, at bare minimum. The shiny symbol could be layered on top of the respective sprites, as it's currently only visible when the individual Pokemon is viewed. All around, from noticing them in the wild to noticing them in your PC storage, Scarlet and Violet's shiny management interface feels unnecessarily punishing and lacking payoff. Topic 3. Doors. Scarlet and Violet goes all in with the open world, which is great and appreciated. However, longtime fans, such as Birdkeeper Toby, have articulated that the focus on the overworld resulted in what feels like a neglect of interior spaces. Said another way, there are proportionally very few buildings to enter, regardless of how much bigger the outside world is. This is much the same as Legends Arceus, but that game had the justification of existing in a region that was yet to be urbanized and had a low human population overall. Scarlet and Violet liberally uses buildings that can be entered, but when entered, the player is only met with a selection screen menu, where a fully realized building interior would typically populate. So, as the franchise pivots to open world, hopefully this is the last time we have to tolerate neglected inside areas. Where this becomes a user interface issue is how the player gets turned around when exiting the building. Because the player wasn't in a building they turned around and consciously exited, the player character is forcibly turned around to simulate the experience of exiting a building. But because these interiors are used so briefly, that forcible turning creates whiplash. Were the player to push the joystick in the direction they just previously understood to be the opposite direction, they then accidentally re-enter the building. That's incredibly frustrating. It's an immediate and visceral reminder that the interior does not exist. Visually, this turnaround also floods the screen with the black void reminder that these buildings have nothing inside. It calls even more attention to the perceived neglect. Let's be constructive. How could this be fixed? Well, let's assume fleshing out these interior spaces is too much to ask. We'll just have to hope that the next game has built buildings. This exit animation might be less frustrating if the player is spat out at a greater distance from the door, affording a reaction time to avoid accidental re-entry. Perhaps the building entryways have a notable depth that requires continuous intention to enter. That way, it wouldn't feel unnatural for the player to be spat out at a greater distance, the first entry, and have the real estate to turn around if they accidentally start to re-enter. NPCs could be set to fade in and out at the first entry, avoiding the potential for them to trap the player inside the extended entry. Were we to get ambitious, it might be nice for these menus to be replaced by merchant screens, typical of Fire Emblem and Zelda titles. The player wouldn't be able to move around the store, but the interiors would be fully expressed as the countertop and talking head of the salesperson. This might even be used for exterior merchants, like cart vendors or the Rotom phone case lady, to blend out the transaction system. This complete rebuild of the transaction system would obviously more than double the resources needed to develop. And at this point, we're kind of getting away from user interface design. But really, Paldea doesn't feel like it has its pewter museum, its Sea Mauville, its glittering lighthouse, its Moss Deep space station, its Sky Arrow bridge. It has natural wonders, sure, and a school to rival the Beast's castle. Being able to barge into people's homes was a fun running joke in the Pokemon series. It's great that more people are locking their doors to random 10-year-olds, but we're really missing out on seeing into the lives of the Paldean people with such a tiny window into them. So, this proposal of talking head merchant menus is offered not because any correction is actually expected, but as a way it could have satisfied the game studio's choice of minimizing the use of interiors while still giving us a taste of them. At the very least, the door issue. The accidental door re-entry could have been fixed with longer entryways. And that's it. That's 3 user interface critiques of Scarlet and Violet. Hopefully it's clear that this wasn't just about complaining, but an articulate appreciation for what the game does and doesn't get right, supported with constructive proposals to theoretically address them. What do you think? Were there any more major interface factors we forgot? Or do you really appreciate something we resent? Please feel free to sound off in the comments and follow Ognot on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for more game design content.